Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
I'm Paul,
I'm Dennis.
and this is
Waves and Wheels
looking back on the 70s and all the old stuff.
with Paul and Dennis and Paul.
Yes, there we go.
Good morning, good morning.
So, what do you think? What should we be talking about today?
Well, you have a little bit of a format going there. Let's go with that, Paul.
Alrighty. So I thought we'd talk about surfboards and then maybe in another episode talk about skateboards. And what we like, what we don't like, what we've seen over the years, what we've used over the years. Personally, each of us, and which is really good. What's really good about this is we rode completely different equipment, and it was based on ability and size and style, and but in the same era. So we have two completely different takes on what worked for each one of us individually. And I had a really interesting, we'll talk about it later, a real interesting conversation with a guy 2 days ago, a shaper. So, you want to start?
Well, I wanted to add, all of the qualifications, to have a board that works for you, the visual aspect. I mean, I've had boards that looked slow, and mentally it made me feel, like I didn't like it. And it has to look fast. You know what I'm saying? You can pick it up and hold it and feel it and put it on your arm and go, man, this thing is going to tear it up.
Yeah, it's
And then you put some crappy paint job on it, and put some, pudgy looking, piggy, slow colors, and it does affect you. It affected me. I know. I mean, every little thing that made it go faster and, it's just fast and carve and throw water.
Yeah. The shape has got
But it's interesting that's not a physical aspect. It's a mental aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, as you know as well as I do, that your mind affects everything you do. And if you're not into something mentally when you're looking at it, doesn't matter how good of a board it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to ride. Perfect example of that was when I had that one board. I don't know if you'll remember, and that was a 3-fin that had the disappearing stringer on it. And about halfway down the board, the stringer was gone. And through no fault of either one of us, we both looked at that thing and thought it had a twist in it.
Yeah,
remember?
It doubts your trust in the purpose for the stringer in the first place,
which is
to keep the board from twisting.
Straight, keep strength and keep it from twisting.
That is interesting.
And I kept looking at it thinking, it has a twist.
Who shaped that one? That wasn't.
We won't talk about that.
Okay.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus on that. So
it was a try.
Yeah, it was a try. So anyway, let's start with. You want to start with the equipment you started surfing on and move through that, or what do you want to do?
Well, yeah, I will. I started with the rounded pintail, which was one of my models supposedly with Harbor surfboards. But I altered that, by giving it more V, and I also changed it a bit with the fin selection, and you could really make your board ride differently with the fin selection, and that's single fin, by the way. I don't have a lot to say about single fins. I wanted to move right away. When I saw the twin fin, I didn't like it, but I have to admit that our friend Bucky Olson, who was very innovative, he made me a really good twin fin that had a nice concave in between the fins, and at the back of that concave it started the V on each of the swallowtails, and that thing, I've carved 360s on that board. It turned so sharp.
Yeah.
But it held and it bite because of the rails. You have a nice down rail and have it hard and thin, so it'll bite when you push against it instead of flying out, and just flopping on your back or your butt or your face. I don't know of anybody else that was into that. I remember the first twin fin I got was from Sunset Surfboards, and I immediately turned that into a 4-fin, as well as after I had it shaped, I reshaped it. I put flutes in the tail.
At the wings.
Yeah, no, it was a square tail, double wing square tail. So I put on the V, I put flutes on it, and that thing, you just look at the natural curve of a wave and look at the surfboard and say, where does it fit?
Right.
And where you can, again, I said again, the fastest thing on the water is a tri-hull, or was the catamaran, the dual hull, and there's no center fin or nothing.
Right.
That's the fastest thing on the ocean so far. So they're going in the right direction. I don't know, the tri-fins, the tri-fin makes it pivot better. When you put that fin in the middle of a twin fin, it just gives it more pivot. I noticed that my turns were longer and more drawn out with the 4-fin, which I liked. I like to carve, go fast, carve long carves, and it holds better when you're hitting the lip because you got something right on. If you go over the top of it and you're basically sliding, you've got more to re-engage. It's easier to re-engage than with a tri-fin or anything with a fin in the center. But again, I really noticed the difference, and that's what it was: longer, drawn-out turns with the thrust. I mean, a 4-fin, and then more pivotal turns with the thruster.
Right.
What about you?
Wow. Well, I obviously started with a longboard, and then I worked my way down because I started when all they had was longboards. Mm-hmm. But I know that the very first board that I had made was a rounded square tail. Mm-hmm. And this is before wings or any of that stuff, and it was a single fin. Mm-hmm. It was short. And I just immediately realized that I tend to like boards with wider tails on them. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because I was heavy on my back foot, and I'd made a lot of my turns off of that back foot, which is what surfers do. But my surfing was, I like to emulate people that are power surfers, mm-hmm. as opposed to smooth surfers. Smooth with power.
I guess that was
power.
I was going to say
power with no smooth.
Remember Jericho Poplar?
Yeah.
He was on the rocks at Crab. Smooth it, smooth it.
Yeah.
He's yelling at me, smooth when I'm riding a wave. Smooth it, smooth it.
Yeah.
No, he was paddling out. I'm sorry, he wasn't. He was surfing with us.
Yeah. Not Jericho.
Not Jericho. What was her brother? What was his? I didn't know I said Jericho, but I did.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now.
Yeah, he was a good kid. I remember that.
Yeah.
Smooth it. I've never heard anything like that. Smooth it, smooth it.
Yeah.
How about rip it, tear it, kill it?
So I was less smooth than this guy, but I liked power. So I liked really standing on the tail of a boarding and carving my turns. And I remember Kurt made me a board after I had come back from Hawaii. It was a short orange board that had a swallowtail about that wide.
Not Little Otis.
No, that was.
Are we going to talk about
well, we can if we want to, but that was locked. Little Otis is
that just popped into my head.
Little Otis is a distant memory. But it had a wide swallowtail, single fin. Mm-hmm. And this was after I had gone to the islands for the first time. And I slotted the fin on the bottom like the guys are doing when they're riding their stingers. Mm-hmm. And I slid the fin up a little bit on it. So it was, instead of being a standard length off of the end of the tail, which was, I think, 12 inches or something like that. I don't remember. It was whatever looked good to the eye. Mm-hmm.
But the basic measurements were what, 12 nose, 12 tail.
Yeah.
And I forget the middle is in the middle.
Yeah,
but
the wide point.
But yeah, wide point. But yeah, it was never in the middle of the board.
No, it was either forward or back.
Mm-hmm.
And the newer the surfboards got, the further it came back.
Yeah.
But this was, I don't remember where the wide point was on this. But anyway, I moved the fin up about that far further than than it would have normally sat. And what that allowed me to do was really stand on the tail on cutbacks and just drive that thing backwards.
That worked on the rounded pintails for me also on the single fins. That's what I did, to move it back a little bit.
Yeah. So
Move
it was interesting. So I tended towards more wider boards that would go up the face of the wave straighter as opposed to down the line. And then of course, once you learn how to come up and then set a rail going down the line, you learn how to pump down the line and generate speed. And that's where four fins and twin fins and thrusters.
Right, getting that fin out of the middle.
Yeah, really
Like an anchor.
made a big difference. And so as we moved through, I surfed the twin fin for a very short period of time. Didn't really like them because they tend to track.
Well, the way they were going with them was ridiculous. It was like a
Yeah, well, it's a fish.
It was like a Coke bottle, the outline.
Yeah.
Just a pinch to nose, and it went almost straight all the way back.
Not a lot of curve to the rail and
Right.
everything.
It doesn't fit in the wave. It was just made to go fast and ride small waves.
Yeah, and you had a good board with maybe a little bit of a pulled in nose with wide point move back and then some nice hips on the tail. It really fit the wave, fit the wave where we surfed
Right.
really well. And so that's what I kind of gravitated to.
Remember that when talking about Bucky and his designs, I remember he made a stinger. Remember who Ben Ipa, right?
With a little step on the bottom.
It was like it had this huge, the big fin wings on it.
And then right at the wings it had a step.
Yeah, so anyway, he had me try his at Southside one day, and I went over the falls, and the thing wrapped around my back, right up the throat, right at the wings. It wrapped around. I didn't even get to ride it. I rode one wave, and went over the falls on it, and it bent in half.
He shaped me a stinger too, but he didn't put the step in the bottom, just the wings way up.
Yeah.
And it worked okay. It wasn't great.
I love the way he put those. To me, they're just, like you said, the twin fin, that basic twin fin is, it goes straight and fast like you wouldn't believe. But once you get it on a curve, you're going to flip over. Bucky adapted everything to that. Like I said, the tails were like, swallow tails were separate.
Yeah.
And that thing, man, you could just think about turning, and it was turning.
Yeah.
And it would come back too because of both of them, and it had that concave so you could switch back. All of that's very innovative, And he notched the fins on that one. Also, they were regular, those nasty looking twin fins, which I never used.
The keel fins.
Yeah, they were keel, and he sliced the back so it made them more flexible.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Yeah, it made slot on the back edge and about that far in on each slot, all the way on the shape of the fin.
Yeah.
So when you turn, they just gave a little.
Yeah, nobody really followed that track like him. I've never seen anything like that. I really haven't.
But, he was
Innovative.
well, he's a smart guy. I mean, he's just very, like you said, very innovative. So when you look at a board and the board that you rode, what did you like about the rails on a board? What were you looking for in a rail on a board?
Well, I wanted to be able to have it knife in, hold when I'm turning.
So you thinner rail?
A thinner rail. And more of a crown deck. And it's an ugly thing, but I'll add that I just read an article, Kelly Slater's new board that came out. I think it cost $1 million. It's some kind of the material is unbelievable. But that's what they're starting to do now. They're putting all of the thickness on the stringer because you got to catch a wave.
Yeah, all the volume on the stringer.
It's ridiculous. When I did my last comeback, that's what I realized. I was riding a 7.6 John Key's big guy try, and I remember David Barr specifically paddling up to me one day and going, "Can you throw that thing around like it's 2 feet long?" Yeah. And that's not the point. The point is, you're not going anywhere until you catch a wave, number one. And number two, if you catch the wave and the wave just leaves you standing there because you're pushing, you're too much weight for the board. I mean, it's all in your head. I understand that if you're on a perfect wave, which, you have to catch again, it's like the towing theory. Once you're in that wave, they're riding like a 3-foot board on a 30-foot wave.
Yeah.
Once they're in, you can rip the crap out of it. So that just validates what I'm talking about. You got to catch the wave first. That's the burden of the board itself, honestly. I mean, you can make a board that, like I said, the towing boards are absolutely amazing, but you'll never catch a wave without being towed in.
Right.
So you have to deal with both of those aspects in the same piece of material.
Right.
And
So you like volume in the middle, thinner rails.
yeah, thinner rails.
Yeah. See, I was the opposite. It's interesting, when we were young, we weren't that much different in size, but I did carry about 10 to 15 more pounds of weight than he did, always. And so when I was in my surfing prime, I was, a hair under 6 feet, and I weighed 170 pounds. And you were probably, 150 pounds, right?
155.
155, so, 15-pound difference there, right? Yeah. So, but for me, I wasn't as strong a paddler as he was. And it was a combination of the weight. And I also think, when it comes to density, I think I was just denser and heavier.
Yeah. A lot of people won't understand that, but I do. Yeah, I understand. You're right. Yeah.
So I had more to move through the water than he did. So I liked my boards with more of a flat deck that carried the width or the thickness as far to the rail as possible, with a curved edge off of the rail, and then with a tucked under edge. So where his rails were thin like this, my rails were thicker like that. I mean, I used to tell the guys, because I like to, you obviously in those days we wanted to ride as short a board as we could, but still be able to get around on the damn thing.
Right.
And so my boards were somewhere in the 6'2" to 6'4" range, and 21 inches wide, or 20 and a half. A narrower nose, somewhere in the 11-inch range on the nose, with a 14-inch tail, 13-inch tail, 14-inch tail. And I like swallowtails with a lot of hip in them.
I like swallowtails and squaretails.
Yeah. And so if you're going 6'2" and you're losing all that width in the nose, and you're, obviously what people don't realize, and just same thing with individual people, when you put a 6 foot tall guy next to a 6'5" guy, he's not 5 inches taller here. He's 5 inches taller in the whole body.
Right.
Or, and so same thing with a surfboard. If you take thickness off of the front or width off of the front of the board, you're shrinking the board. And so my boards, I would always tell the shaper, max them out.
Yeah.
Max out the thickness everywhere in the board that you could.
Right.
So my tails were thicker, my noses were thicker, just so I could paddle the damn thing and catch a wave, because that's the ultimate goal, is to catch a wave. And riding a board that's underwater, paddling a board that's underwater.
You can't catch a wave.
Well, not unless you're one of these top pros that weigh 140 pounds and,
Well, and
all you
again,
do is surf every day.
I was going to say again, they're taking off in the tube.
Yeah, you're taking off under the lip all the time.
It's a different concept.
And for an above average surfer to a well above average surfer, pro level surfer, for me, I want to get into the wave as soon as I can.
Me too.
It helps me set up the whole wave. Those guys can, he can get in, start later than I can because he was quicker and had a higher ability level than me. But for me, I needed to get into the wave as soon as I could, so I could set up what I was going to do on that wave. And it gives you a little more time to react and all those kinds of things. It makes it easier. So I want more foam. So that's why I like that.
You said your maximum length. Would you believe that I don't believe I went under 6 foot in my whole career as a length on my
The only board I had under 6 foot was a 5'10".
I might have gone to 5'10".
With a 5'10" wind in sea. That was the very first custom board that I talked about a minute ago with the rounded square tail. That was the only board I take that back. Bucky made me a twin fin that was under 6 feet.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, you're right. He made me 2 twin. Well, you know what? He made me a 6 foot. My yellow one was 6 foot. I loved it. But I want to go back on the deck thing.
Yeah.
The first time that when the flatter decks came out,
Yeah.
I started getting calcium deposits on them.
Oh, and I've got them too. I still have
You know
them.
why? Flat domed.
Yeah.
They were positioned right, and that honestly, look at John Florence's boards. The noses are completely different than anybody's little pinchy. You know, he puts the nose there so he can catch the wave. Everybody else is getting the nose out of the way. For, I don't know, for some.
I think it's for swing weight and to keep it out of the water.
Who's number one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it works for him.
Yeah, but he gets in the. That's the point. There's where his paddling power is. Those boards are ugly. Have you seen his boards out of the water?
Yeah.
They're butt ugly.
Yeah. And he's not a little guy either.
Yeah,
He's a tall guy.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you said that. I remember getting those calcium deposits once the decks started changing. What the heck is this?
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Yeah, it
You're
did.
pinching, skin in between your ribs.
Yeah, it did. I remember.
Growing new bone or something.
Boned.
Right.
Well, back in the day when the guys used to knee paddle all the time, they get those
Yeah,
knots
knots.
below their knees from knee paddling and on the tops of their feet.
Surf knots.
Surf knots. And that's basically the same thing you would get right below your boobs on the bottom of your rib cage from, arching your back and having your ribs
Well, when you
laying
think
on the
about
board.
it, though, when the board fits as part of you, then that's what gave me more power.
Right.
When I reach down and grab into that water to dig, I'm pulling the board with me, and I rarely. I mean, have you ever remember little slippage when you're paddling? Yeah, when they're flat, that does.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you're developing calcium deposits.
Yeah.
That's very difficult.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
It's really interesting when you think about it. And then you already talked about bottom contour. I liked
Concave.
the concaves down by the fins. And I even liked when we were doing channels, I like those a little bit
Have you
too.
ever ridden any of the EPS foams, the epoxy or anything?
I have never ridden an EPS board.
I had
They're so lightweight, it's unbelievable.
one. Believe that sci-fi was EPS.
Yeah, it was.
But the first time I rode that thing, I mean, I noticed that when I'm just sitting there, when the wave came by, it followed the wave for some reason. It just had it was out of the water more, so I guess that's why. It had more of a reaction to any movement of the ocean. And that thing, you talk about what do you call it? The little
The pop stars.
pop kick up,
Yeah,
like that.
pop stars.
That thing, they worked really good because once you sunk it, it's harder to sink them because they're more buoyant.
Boy, oh boy, yeah.
So paddling out, and also the first time I paddled out, when I tried to go over a wave like that, I think almost slapped me in my face because it's harder to dunk. There's a trade-off on all of that.
Did it flex a lot?
I didn't feel it flex. It was, it was a 6'10",
Yeah.
6'8". It was 6'8", so honestly, I'm not sure if I ever felt any of that.
That leads into what you're talking about. The buoyancy, obviously, we talked about that. But the weight of a board. I mean, he as well as I were, lighter the better.
But you can be too light.
Yeah, you can.
And it depends on the conditions.
Yeah, I liked.
Sure.
My perfect setup was a super light blank with a 4-ounce bottom, a 4-ounce top, a 4-ounce deck patch, and no gloss.
Yeah, I never glossed mine. Just sanded finish.
Yeah. What did you do? Were you a 4 or 6?
I used to do a 6 patch on the deck because I used to beat the hell out
Oh,
of
that's right. You were really heavy on your feet.
Yeah, especially the right
I
side.
remember all the pressure things on your foot.
Yeah, on the right-hand side, my knee was kicking the crap out of it. So. Yeah, I don't know why it mattered, but it does matter. You're getting that's funny. That makes leads me to the magic board. When you have a magic board, that's why you want to preserve it.
Yeah.
So I used to I got boards free, yet I wanted to make sure that they lasted.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if it didn't last, honestly, but I don't care what anybody says, and it's to this day, everybody can say that. They're popping boards out of computers and no two boards are still alike. They're just not alike. They're not. I've never rode two boards that felt exactly the same.
It's interesting, the conversation I had with that shaper the other day, we talked about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked as light a board as I could get because I usually had more foam in my boards.
Mm-hmm.
So they were heavier, so I made them lighter.
Yeah.
You know, as a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even my longboards that I ride, I'd use a super light blank with minimal amount of cloth on them.
I wonder if that ever had anything, you know, if the ratio of your weight on the board's buoyancy and catching
sure.
a wave has some sort of an effect.
Oh, I'm sure it's all a factor.
And you got to.
I mean, that explains why some boards work for some people and don't work for others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's true.
I mean, you know, your boards, I could never ride your boards because they weren't made for me. They weren't what I liked or anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Well, what I like to do is different, and I'm going to refer to David Barr one more time. But when he was talking about that same board, how big it was, and I was throwing it around, we were surfing at a spot that I had claimed, and it was his for a long time, I'm sure. He grew up in Carlsbad, I didn't, but he noticed that I was taking off 200 yards deeper than him. And that was the other thing. That's my thing. I don't even see the beach when I'm taking off. I see the end of the wave down the line. I'm at an angle, which is also easier to take off in critical conditions. You don't want to go straight down most of the time. You don't want to go straight down because you're going into a concave. I perched on that and immediately tried to get speed out of the thing. And I'm eyeballing, 30, 40 yards down the line, which was an issue because when it's crowded, people think, he's not going to make it because he's way back there and they'll help you out.
Yeah.
So the boards were different for designed that way, for down the line speed, and I figured honestly, not looking at the shape of the board, but speed. The faster you go, the harder you can carve that board. And that's kind of was my mentality from the beginning. And then I started working on making that easier, making the turns easier because,
yes. And there's the difference between you and I, where you could get a board that was a fast board that worked well going down the line and you could turn it. Mm-hmm. Mine was, I wanted a board that I could turn and make it go faster down the line.
Yeah.
Pump it down the line faster.
I just like speed.
Yeah, it's just completely different philosophies and what, and again, what we like. And both of us were fortunate that we worked with shapers or found ourselves working with shapers that would listen to us and understand where we were coming from and what we liked and would, make the boards to our desires. They, of course, they would, put their own 2 cents in all the time because, they know what works too. And, a good shaper does. And they will say, well, that's not going to really work. And, you had to prod them a little and everything, but there's always a compromise in there. And 9 times out of 10, if you're working with the right guy, it's going to work. But every now and then you hit on that one board, like he said, the magic board, where everything just falls into place. And you think about it, it's not only the shape, but what it's made out of, how thick it is, how heavy it is. If it's the bottom contours are right on it, the fin selection is placed right, and it's the right fins. And then it's all about how your weight is, how you ride the board. And you get that marriage where everything comes together. It's magic, man. And when you have those boards, you don't want to get rid of them. So.
I'm just thinking about when I started reshaping the boards before I glassed them. Not majorly, but it was always.
I used to tweak them.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering. I don't think I did that to Rich. I don't think I did it to Harbor. I know I did it to Ed Wright at Sunset.
I think you did it with Kurt's boards too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was glassing my boards,
Yeah, I remember you would change them.
I would not just bring them in and lay glass on them. I'd take a good look at them, But the thing is, I never was a shaper either.
Yeah, but you knew it worked.
Yeah. Well, that's part of my warped mentality that I don't want somebody else telling me what I like. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just me. Yeah.
So let's go aesthetics for a second.
Brickboard.
Yeah. Well, that was my question. Did you like colors on your board, or did you like white boards?
I want to tie this into what we were talking about just for the last thing of the magic board. I had it was a Sunset, and it was a twin or a four fin. No, it was a four fin, but it was a swallowtail, really nice. Bottom was all white, and I just threw shit all over it. It was like, what do you?
Avant-garde.
Yeah, it was a different name, but just all over his paint.
Modern art.
That board I gave to Steve Sweet, and it was like at that point when I got done surfing, I'd set it up like this and let the water drain out of the tail because the tail was so beat up from my knee. Okay, honestly, within the year I gave it to him, it was almost a whole year. I was there and one day, and he was out with it, and I traded, and I said, let me try that back again. Thing was just, I just got right on it and rode. And it's amazing after all that time, and I've probably ridden different boards and had different, magic boards. I wanted to test that magic theory. I think, let me try that, and bam, it worked.
It was a magic
incredible.
board. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's the way it was with that red one that what's his name? Seal Beach guy. Kazanis made for me. That you sanded the fins off and turned into a four fin for me.
Yep.
It's just, I gave it to my nephew. He needed a board to ride. I couldn't ride it anymore because it was too small. And I told him, I said, yeah, you can borrow it. I said, but do not ever get rid of this board. If you don't want it anymore in your garage or anything, just tell me, I'll come pick it up. I said, because that board is magic and it's not going anywhere. I'll never be able to ride it again, but I'm not giving it away. And it's still in his garage. And that board, I had that board made in the 80s,
yeah.
And it's still in the garage. And then I have one in my garage right now.
Yeah.
That 9.6 longboard that John Keith made for me. I could ride that thing in anything. I rode that thing in 10-foot swamis, and I ride it in, small waves. I love that board. Okay, so let's talk about aesthetics. What do you like?
Fast colors.
Fast colors?
Things that are fast, and I don't know if I had really my favorite board was my twin fin that I turned into a four fin from Sunset, and it had lime green rails with like blue accents, and it was airbrushed, so it was kind of pretty, I guess.
Yeah.
But it came up to the nose, and it produced like a fast look to it.
Yeah.
We've had three boards that Bucky, who is an outstanding artist, also.
Yeah.
As well as a good shaper. I had a completely brick board. It was just brick, red brick and mortar. It was bricks.
And it was tagged, I remember.
Yeah. He made me another one that the other one I did. Actually, I just sprayed the top yellow and wrote my name on it. Then after having the brick board, I started to get creative. And I don't know if you've seen buildings where they used to have brick underneath, and they put
I remember
on
that.
it, and there was holes in it.
I remember that board.
We did one like that. It was my design, but he did it, and that was fun. That was an interesting board.
The four fin he made for me, he made it was a zebra.
Zebra, yeah.
It looked like a zebra. That was cool.
That. Well, I like stuff that stands out, but when you're laying on it, I want it to, stay fast.
Yeah.
More than anything.
It was, with me, it was really strange. The very first board that I ordered was blue. The color was dark blue. And so it just melted wax like crazy. But it had yellow pin lines on it and a yellow sticker on it. And then the very first surf movie I went to see is where I saw Jerry Lopez for the very first time in a surf movie. And he was riding a lightning bolt round, pintail with a red bottom, red rails, yellow deck,
Oh yeah.
black bolt, black pin lights.
And Mark Richards stole that from him.
And from that day forward, every board I've ever had has had red and yellow on it somewhere. And it's just my theme that I like. You know, I had a board exactly like his, but it didn't have the lightning bolt on it.
Remember the milky lime green thing that I had? One of Kurt's. This is nasty. He had some of the ideas. That's when I found the old decals in the back of the shop and resurrected the Harbor Lady.
Yeah.
That was the first board it went on.
Yeah. I remember that decal was really cool. He put it on a spherical revolver, right? Or was that it? Or
no, it was just that's a different decal.
oh wow.
Yeah, that was just a rounded pintail, but it was an ugly board. And I just came up with this milky lime green color, and on the deck, and the bottom was white.
Yeah.
And I put the Harbor Lady on the bottom.
You know, when I went to the islands the first time, I was in Wacky Key surfing at Populars, which is just down from number 3's, and I was walking out. I just got out of the water, and I was walking back to the hotel we were staying in, and this kid from the islands was walking up to go surfing, and he had a board on him that was green bottom, green rails, and a watermelon pink deck, and the green on the bottom. I don't know. I've always tried to figure out how to describe these colors, but they were kind of milky, but they were vibrant, and the board just reeked tropical when I saw it.
Did it look like an open watermelon?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Cool.
it was.
I love those two colors together.
It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I came back, and one of the subsequent boards I got after coming back was a smaller, because I rode a longer. They talked me into taking a 7.6 to the island because I needed the length, even though it was the summer. And I had that god-awful purple board. I don't know if you remember that, but it rode really well in Hawaii. But when I came back, I think the next board Kurt made me, when I sent it out for color, I told him I wanted it milky lime green with a milky watermelon red deck with black pin lines on it. And it came back and it was puke green and kind of a maroonish red. And it's just butt ugly board. Rode really
I was
well,
going to say it probably rode well.
but it was butt ugly.
No.
And I remember getting out of the water one day at Huntington on south side of the pier in the afternoon. And I was getting ready to walk to the car. And this girl walked up to me, and she was probably 20 years old or whatever. She walked up to me and said, "God, that's an ugly ass surfboard."
So we're not going out tonight.
And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you don't have to ride it." And she got offended by that. But it was butt ugly. And I remember I broke that at Southside.
Really, something, but it makes it's mental. Like you said that before. It's in your head sometimes, and
Yeah. So yeah, every board since the Jerry Lopez meeting at that one surf movie, and I want to say it was probably Island Magic or something like that. Every board I've ever had a red or yellow or both, usually both on it, either stickers or color. And I tend to, as I got older, no color on boards, but just decals. And I would color the decals on them. And the last short board that I got, which really wasn't a short board, it was kind of mid-size. It's a 710 big guy try by Keys with a swallowtail. Is clear, sanded, no gloss, and it has red and yellow lightning bolts down the whole rail of the board. It's really a nice board.
Yeah.
Really nice board. I would love to be able to ride that again. And it worked really well too. So
I'm sitting here racking my brain trying to think of, we're talking about designs and boards and all of ours. I'm trying to think of, I have a question for you and I can't answer it. I, have how many other people's boards or whose other boards that we rode that we just couldn't believe, like, wow, how does he ride this? I don't remember switching with really that many people. But you think about that would be interesting, if you rode somebody else's board just to critique it.
Yeah, I didn't ride a lot of other people's boards, mainly because nobody's boards would float me right or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember my nephew wanted to get, he had started out riding longboards and he wanted to get a shorter board. Mm-hmm. And I took him to see John at Encinitas Surfboards, and we talked to him, and he said, "Why don't I make you?" This was before the big guy tri. He was making tri fins that had kind of a rounded nose on them. I don't remember what the name of it was, but he had a name for them. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a real pulled-in nose, but it wasn't a real wide. It wasn't real pulled in. It wasn't real wide. It was.
I've seen one of those on Craigslist.
Yeah,
I look at Craigslist all the time for boards. I don't know why. Like I'm going to go buy a board and go out surfing tomorrow, but I saw that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was, and he showed him that, and he said, "Look, it'll float you well, da 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 da." Mm-hmm. And it was a 3-fin, mm-hmm. and so Mike bought it and he rode it, and then one day he and I were out, and we were out at the Del Mar River mouth surfing, and I was riding my 9.6 longboard, and he wanted to try my longboard, mm-hmm. and I'm like, okay. So when he had that made, he weighed 220 pounds, mm-hmm. which is about where I was at that time, and I said, okay, let me try that. And I hadn't ridden a short board or other than a longboard in well over a couple of years, mm-hmm. and I got on that thing, and very first wave I took off on, I just did a real quick turn at the top, set it down on that line, and started pumping it down the line, just bam! And I went, holy shit, mm-hmm. I can still do this, and I like this board. And Mike watched me ride it, and we paddled back out together, and he looked at me, he goes, "Yeah, give me my board back." I said, "No, I want to ride it for a while." He said, "No, give it back."
Definitely related to you. I can hear you saying that. Or here, see you doing that. Give me my board back.
So yeah, but and then when I thought about it, the more I thought about it, when we were sitting down talking with John about the board, mm-hmm. I kind of steered him to get a board like I like to ride, thinking that it would help him because he's a bigger guy like me.
Well, and you would be able to try it too.
Yeah,
it's an in to be able to.
And you know what's really funny about that is, he gave me that board.
Oh wow!
And after years, he didn't want it anymore. He said, "Do you want it?" Because I was teaching my daughter how to surf. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah." And so he gave it to me, and Marcy rode it, my daughter, when she was little, and then my son Adam rode it, and it's also sitting in my nephew's garage in Long Beach. I think he's got 2 or 3 of my boards in his garage.
I've got one of his boards.
In Long Beach. Which one is that longboard?
Keys. Oh, no, Stewart.
Stewart, that's not his.
No, it's right. It's in my garage. You got that right.
You're right. It's in your garage.
Good job, Paul.
Yeah.
It's not his.
It's actually another Peter's board. That he told me can you hang on to this? I can't keep it in my garage anymore. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. That was like 5 years ago.
It's been in my garage for 5 years. I haven't rode it. I never tried it.
That's a nice board.
Yeah, it's beautiful too.
Yeah, it's a nice board.
I love Stewart's. I had a good one before.
I've never ridden a Stewart.
I had at work. I work in the apartment industry. At one of my properties, I went in the manager's office and there's a board laying around on the ground. And I said, what's this for? A guy got evicted and he left it in the apartment, and it was a 8.0 rounded pintail tri-fin Stewart, glassed in fins. Mm-hmm. Best longboard ever with the chime rails, and he's famous for the chime rails and the concave in the nose. That thing ripped. I mean, 8 foot. I could catch board that like a longboard on that, weighs like a longboard. But that thing, I remember standing that. I could hit the lip vertical on that. It was the best longboard that I ever had, and it was same thing, waterlogged. The tail was all delaminated. I'd bring it home and set it on the tail and let it drain for the next day. And that thing lasted for a while, but I got it for free. She let me have it. I wanted to, if when we're ready to end, are we ready to end?
Yeah, well, go on.
I want to bring up some loser boards.
Sure.
Well, just one mainly.
We're got about another 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just. Before I forget it. Sorry, I'm an old guy.
No, do
I
it.
want to bring up the Super Tuber.
Super tuber.
That stupid board with the round nose. It reminded me of like a pelican or something. It had a round nose. The Harbor Super Tuber.
I don't remember that board.
I think I rode it once and didn't do it. Yeah, nasty, ugly. And what made me think of it was the round nose you're talking about. And for me, I like I said, I saw that online. I liked it. I almost bought it, but I know I wasn't going to use it. But I can't. For a short board, I can't get the round nose into my head. It's just slow. It immediately just says slow to me. Harbor Super Tuber.
Okay, well, if we're talking ugly, then I guess we're going to talk about Little Otis.
I was trying to coax it out of you. Not really.
Kurt went through a stage where he was shaping boards that were round nose, full noses, down to the rail, pulled in either a rounded pin or a square tail.
Yeah.
And, but they were full boards and they were thin. And we all rode one. In fact, he even made one for you. I don't know how long you rode it, but he rode one, but he made one for you. And he decided to make me one because it was, quote unquote, it'll work for you, Paul. It'll be something you really like. And that thing was a dog. It was 710, I think. Round, really, mine was obviously thicker and everything. Had a square tail on it. It was, I can't remember the colors on it, but it was butt ugly colors. And right below the sticker, he wrote Little Otis on it because it was this little tank board that he made for me.
It was such a bad board that I tried to Google it and it wasn't there. That tells you how bad it was.
It was just a terrible board. And I mean, it was ugly, it was slow.
Little Otis.
It rode like a log.
Well, you see, but all of that negative energy, Little Otis is not like, oh, yeah, it's going to go fast.
Yeah.
Little Otis sounds like
Like a slug.
like a slug or a tugboat or
Yeah.
You name your tugboat Little Otis.
Yeah, it was not a good board at all, and I hated it.
Yeah.
What else? What other boards?
Well, what designs?
Well,
real?
I mean, Kazanis made me that one board one time where, I ordered the board and I waited 3 weeks for it, and he kept telling me it was coming, and it never showed up. And then finally I told him I was going to be in the area. This is my board there. Oh yeah, it's here. And I went there to pick it up, and he pointed to it, and it was smaller and thinner and narrower and the wrong colors. And he says, "That's your board right there." And I looked at it, I said, "That's not my board." He goes, "Yeah, it is. Trust me, take it." I put it under my arm. I could instantly tell it wasn't going to float me, and I'm just like, this is it. And he said, "Take it, trust me." So I took it, went right home to Oceanside Harbor. Nice swell that day. Threw on my trunks this summer without a wetsuit on, laid on the board and it went boop, underwater. And I'm like, oh, motherfucker.
See, that's two of the things that somebody that can surf can immediately do. They put the board under their arm and tell what's going to go on. And when you get on the water, I could throw it in a swimming pool and lay on it and go,
Yeah.
no, or yes.
Yeah.
So
You can tell, and you lay on it and you try to start to paddle it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell if it's going to push water or if it's going to glide.
Yep.
And, and this thing, I literally laid down on the board and it was completely underwater. Not even the nose was sticking up.
Well, knowing Robert the way as much as I did, I think that wasn't your board.
Oh, I know for a fact he just got fed up with me calling him.
Probably,
And he was one of those guys that, if he didn't feel like doing something, he just didn't do it. And so I went back the very next day and gave him back the board and said, "Give me my money." And he gave me a check, and I went right to his bank to make sure the check was good.
Isn't it funny you can tell stuff about people through the little things? Remember, he had a wood stump right outside the front door of his shop, and he glued down a corner of a $20 bill like it was under it. It's just the F with people.
Yeah. So, and it was a shame because that was the last board he made for me. Yeah. Because he was really good when he was on.
Well, and their shapers are going to be there's like any artist. That's an art. They're flaky and flighty, and they're hard to pin down. Yeah. And they do that intentionally.
Yeah. Which brings me to my conversation I had a couple days ago. I stopped in the Encinitas and John was there. I went to pick up a Christmas present for my brother. And I was just talking with John, and he was telling me about how everything's going business-wise and everything like that. And he was watching one of his guys that works there selling a board to somebody. And, you know, the person that was buying the board was a guy that had never surfed before. And he was looking at the little boards, and his salesman steered him away from it to a mid-size or to a longer board because it would be easier for him to learn on it. And it reminded me of the conversation I had with a woman at Surf Ride or whatever that place is in Oceanside. When after a kid tried to sell her a board that would no way would she be able to learn how to surf on. And I talked her out of buying it and talked her into buying something bigger and that was more stable and everything. And I brought that up to John and he was like, yeah, I mean, you know, you can't ride, if you can't catch a wave, you can't ride a wave.
First things first, honey,
Yeah.
you know, sorry.
Yeah, you got to be able to catch the wave, and if you're laying underwater, you're not going to be able to catch a wave.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was really interesting. But you know, one of the other things we talked about was shaping, and I've said it before. This guy will take time with you, and a good shaper will, especially once they understand that you understand the philosophy of surfboards and the design and how they work and how they don't work and what they can do and can't do. And, you know, it's hard for somebody who makes 1,000 boards a year to sit there and take some input from somebody that they don't know. But once they understand that you understand what's going on, you know, so I think it's really clear if you're ever going out looking for a board that you kind of understand what it is.
There's not a lot of
What it
people out
does.
there like him because that's where he gets his joy and his excitement out of, you know, being able to communicate with people in that fashion, you know, without really seeing them surf or do anything because, you know, but it's easy to not go that way. The advertisements and, oh, I want to surf like Kelly, you know, get it through your head. You're not going to surf like Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what you do, how much money you got or whatever.
And
It ain't going to happen. It's a
and one out of
progression.
100 surfers or one out of 1,000 surfers will never even get to the professional level of surfing.
Or that level of knowledge.
I mean, where did you learn about surfing? What boards, about board design? Who taught you? Or did you just learn it on your own?
I did. I learned it on my own.
You learned it on your own.
You'll read it.
Trial and error.
Read it in my book.
Trial and error.
Sorry. Yeah, I honestly, you know, I'm sure it's not a secret. I grew up with a mental deficiency, slight mental deficiency, ADHD, and I want to do my own thing. I don't want something that I don't know how it works. I don't want you to tell me how I want to do something. I have these quirks, and I thrive. That's what's made me successful in my life. Period. I need to know.
Yeah.
I am inquisitive. I need to know. I read about stuff all the time. I want to know how it ticks. There are very few things that if I don't know how it ticks, do I walk away from. I want to, you know, it's like, oh, screw this. I don't. I want to know. I just want to know.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from that. You know, knowledge is, actually knowledge to me isn't power, it's a responsibility. So, but I love it. I just need to know how things work. So it's a miracle I wasn't a shaper.
Yeah, well,
And I'll tell you exactly why right now, because, and we're now on the ADHD subject, that's it, is because I grew up having shapers trying to tell me what I want. I hate all of them. They don't know what I'm talking about. We all have our place in life and sports and sharing and helping, and people need people, absolutely. It's like when Pat Riley is an NBA player. He wasn't a Magic Johnson or anybody. He was a bench warmer. absolutely fabulous coach. The guy could coach the.
Well,
you know,
those who don't coach,
Well,
right?
you know why? Because he's watching.
Yeah.
He sees everything. But I see everything, and I want to know everything. And I don't want to know it because I want to make you look bad. It makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm uncomfortable if I don't. And it's a burden. Yeah, it is a burden. I've lived my whole life that way with everything, not just surfing.
Yeah.
You know, but so I'm sorry you opened up a
No, I understand. You know, for me, it's
wound.
I like to know how everything works as well.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate when I was young. I got hooked up with Bruce Jones, and Bruce was one of those guys. He's a very quiet guy until you got to know him, and then he would open up a little bit. They used to call him Gabby because he didn't talk a lot.
Right.
But I had a friend named Rob Ewart and his brother Tim. And they introduced me to Bruce one day when he took over the Ole shop. And when it was just two shacks, a showroom shack and a shaping shack. And so the very first board I got from him was, I think, about a 7.2, somewhere, 7.2 rounded pintail, because that's what everybody was riding in those days. And it was my first yellow and red board and all that stuff. But he let me watch him shape, and which I thought was really cool. I was a 16-year-old kid, you know, and I had every board that I had gotten before that either made or off the rack. No, I just ordered the board and it came, or I bought it off the rack, and this was the first board that I actually stood in the shaping bay while he shaped it. And it was really cool because I walk in and he was very nice to me, you know, when we were talking about getting a surfboard. And you know, I talked to him, told him I was saving up my money and stuff like that. And he said, you know, when you're ready, let me know. And so if I finally came to that day I was ready, and I went down and I talked to him. And he said, okay. And he says, you know, I have time. You want to do it right now? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay. So he takes me to the shaping bay, and in the rafters above the shaping bay, he's got all these blanks in there. And he looked at me, he goes, pick out your blank. And I said, what? He goes, pick out your blank. And I go, okay, I don't know. And he goes, okay. And he explained the difference. There was one with a 16th inch redwood stringer in it. There was one that had a quarter inch and it looked like a balsa stringer in it. And then there was the three redwood stringer, which I knew was a really nice blank, but I didn't ask for it. But he would have let me take it if I wanted it. And I told him, I said, the one with the quarter, the one with the white wood in it is how I called it, or something like that. So I didn't know what it was. And so he pulled that one down. He says, it's a good choice. And he told me what it was. And he goes, okay, now, so what are you looking for? And I told him what shape I'm looking for. And I pointed to a board that he had already done. And he goes, okay, good choice. And then he proceeded to lay the templates out on it and draw the outline, you know, and we skimmed it first. And then he drew the outline. And he told me why he was skimming it. And you know, and then proceeded to walk me through every stage of what he was doing, through, you know, the rail shaping of it, the bottom contour, putting rocker into the board, and why it needed rocker. He told me everything there was about what he was doing, shaping that board. He taught me everything right in that one session, where it would have only taken him probably an hour to shape a board. It probably took him almost 3 hours because he took his time with me. And I mean, that's the kind of guy he was. And I learned a lot from him. And then, you know, as I moved away from him, and Kurt started making boards for me, and I started watching Kurt and talking with Kurt, and Kurt would take some input for me and everything like that. And I just built my knowledge over all the years. And then, of course, working at the surf shop, you learn, you know, about boards and everything like that. And I learned how to hold a board up and look down the bottom of the board, tilt it, and look at the rail line, and look, and, you know, and how it felt under your arm, and how it was balanced right, and stuff like that. I learned all that stuff from working at the shop and working with these guys. And most people that surf these days have no clue about any of that stuff.
Right. Well, they see somebody on on a video and they want to be him.
Yeah.
And if they got the money, that's how they think.
And
that's
they'll
the
go out and
quickest,
spend $1,000 on a board that won't even,
the fast track to being Kelly.
yeah. And it's just, and you go out on a daily basis and watch these guys in the water just floundering on equipment that won't work for them.
Right.
You know?
Before we go too much further, I wanted to give a disclaimer. Hating the shapers is my problem. There's not to say there ain't great shapers out there. And people that listen, because he's right. No, that guy like that, I eat him up. But I did some work for Bruce, and I disappointed him. I actually very much so. But he's a great guy. And that again, it's not to say that there isn't good shapers. It's just I don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And that's my problem.
Well, he shaped very specific types of boards, and for some people they work, and some people they
nice
didn't.
guy. Yeah.
Oh, he was a great guy.
When you're talking about him, I just feel bad and guilty that I disappointed him. I let him down. But that's life, and that was a part of my life where,
And that's how I feel about Harbor. I disappointed Harbor.
Well, look at the people, all of them telling you what they're doing. That's what also I was thinking about, that you had asked Rich to help, if he would teach you how to shape, and he wouldn't. And this guy never even knew you, met you, and pretty much, I was going to say, were you writing that down?
I absorbed a lot. I had a good mind in those days and absorbed a lot. But I would stand outside the shaping bays and watch Rich shape. And he was an artist. He knew what he'd been building boards forever by that time, and he knew his shit. And I just, it was just, and I didn't even think about what I was saying. I just asked him because I was watching what he was doing, and I really honestly felt that I could do it. I really do, and to this day, I regret not learning how to shape because I really think I could have done it. I have the patience for it and everything like that. And, but he just flat out refused. I think if I had taken the initiative and bought a blank and shaped it on my own and brought it to him and said, Rich, I did this, can you critique it for me? I think if I did something like that, he may have been more responsive to me. Yeah. But, he had his eye on teaching Kurt how to shape and all that.
Somebody that's going to make him money.
Yeah.
I shaped one board. I ripped the glass off of an older big board.
I did that too, yeah.
And it ended up being a child's board. Excuse me, by the time I got done, fixing my mistakes, it was a child's board.
Yeah. I bought a board in Harbor one day called a Carver. And unbeknownst to me, it was one of the first boards that Kurt ever shaped. Before he started shaping for Harbor. And it was yellow, it had 3 red stringers in it.
Called a Carver, or it was a Harbor Carver?
No,
model?
it was a Carver.
Ah.
That was the label on it, and it was a written label. And and so I bought that board, and it had terrible rocker on it. It didn't, couldn't drop in for anything with it and everything like that. It didn't last me very long. And I remember surfing it one day at River, at the inside break in River at Little's. You remember that little place? Little sandbar I used to break?
Little's.
And losing it into the rocks and breaking the fin out of it, the fin box out of it. And so when that happened, I took it to my friend's house, and who lived in Naples Island, and we ripped the glass off of it, and I reshaped it into a much shorter board. And at the time, we had a kid that hung out with us. His name was Butchie, and made it, and we glassed it for Butch, and he rode that thing for a year, and he loved it.
So you're a shaper,
I guess. But anyway, so yeah, fun times.
Fun time.
Okay, let's end with something fun.
Something fun.
Yeah, a memory, a fun memory.
A fun memory. Wow. You're going to have to do that one.
I don't have any.
I don't have any. Every day is fun. We said this before. When you're surfing, there's no bad days.
Okay, I got one fun memory.
All right.
We were all of us were out. It's my very first tube ride. I was up with my high school friends, and we were we had driven up to Santa Barbara. And we were surfing it was that weekend where it was really big everywhere. And we were surfing in the cove at Refugio's, which never really breaks that well, and when it does, it's rare. But there is a flat reef area right at where the point comes out. And we were taking out just beyond the point, taking off there and riding through. And for the most part, nothing happened in that area. You just rode through it and everything. But for some reason, what made this great were two of my friends were paddling out in the cove. And I dropped it on this wave. And mind you, I'm a 16-year-old kid at this time. I'm not a great surfer. I'm very average.
Having fun.
Yeah. And I dropped in and I made a couple turns and I'm riding, and all of a sudden it hit that shallow spot in the reef, that flat table in the reef, and the whole thing just stood up. And I'm like, I basically fell into the tube. I turned into it, the whole thing threw over me. I, squatted down a little bit and put my hand out in front of me like you're supposed to do. And I could see the wave breaking over me beyond where my hand was. And as I'm looking out of the tube, I see my two friends paddling over the wave looking in at me. And I popped out. And they're like, yeah! And it was the best day of my life to that point.
Good memory.
And that's my first memory of a tube ride.
Awesome.
What about you? You got to have something like that.
I don't know. They're all great.
Yeah.
We mean a fun memory or a bizarre? I can give you a bizarre memory.
Give me a bizarre memory.
On my out at Carlsbad, when it comes to the shore bridge, if you're paddling out, it goes like this. It dips down, and the wave.
Really jacks up.
Yeah, so if you're riding straight in, you're going to actually pearl into this. I'm heading towards what I would call the end, doing a roller coaster or whatever, or a closeout slap or whatever. And I'm gaining speed. It's on the Firewire Sci-Fi, and I'm getting ready to do that final turn. It's closing out. So I flatten out go to hit the bottom and flatten out, and I start turning, and I run into that ledge, and the board. I don't understand. It was like a car accident. The time just went tick, 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 really slow. The board got up on the edge. My arm fell into the water, and my arm was in that ledge. The board went over the top of that. Somehow the board came around, went through that. And the next thing I know, I'm off of the lip, and I'm almost laying down on my face. and it goes up that train. Next thing you know, I'm up on the top of that thing, going to go back down into 3 or 4 inches of water. That's my next thing after going, what? Oh! And then I have to navigate that. So I stomped on the tail, came down and made that, and I'm just like, what in the hell just happened? The wave went like this, and I hit that thing, and the board was almost out of the water, and I thought I was just going to lay down on my face, and the board was going to hit me, and next thing I know, I'm off the lip, and I have no idea what I did. I had no idea. And it was funny because Jake was getting dressed in his car. Instead of paddling back out, I ran over and go, did you, what? Can you see what happened? Because I didn't see you, sorry. I'm like, it's weird. But that just shows you the reactions and the cat, that's unconsciousness.
Yep.
To me, that's your unconscious mind. Because I don't know what I did. It did it. I just ended up being on the board.
But you were.
I went with it.
You were able to react to it.
Yeah.
And make it work. So.
Yeah, bizarre.
Well, is that it?
Yes, this is Dennis.
This is Paul.
And we're Waves with Wheels, and we're out of here.
We're walking off right now. Oh. Thank you.